So I essentially started off in technology strategy, which someone said they did before with Accenture. Spent about 5 years there and thought that I'm not building enough. So I decided to go to business school with the goal of becoming product manager. Came out with a role in product strategy because that's what I did at Accenture. So spent a while at HB working on product strategy, helping them build out new products, launch them, etc., which was very interesting. Then I decided that I don't want to be in small companies anymore. So I went to Silicon Valley, went to San Francisco, worked in a startup, helped them build a SaaS cloud offering billing software. So essentially what we did was build a commerce platform which would help you sell anything that you build on cloud, right? So in that, I had a title of product everything because I was essentially the first one to be in a product role there. So I did everything from creating the product strategy to uh, building marketing vision for the product and also working with the engineers on how exactly we should be building this particular product given our customer base. So I'm going to be looking at this B2B product roadmap building from both perspectives. A larger company where everything is established and a smaller company where you're the first PM essentially. Then I decided that I wanted to build billing for the largest company that sells anything on cloud. So I decided to come join AWS. I was actually, I started in the EC2 team, which is essentially their compute, cloud compute offering. But infrastructure, I loved it, but I wanted to go back to billing. I really find like cloud billing essentially a problem statement that has not been solved for yet. Whether it's AWS or Azure, there's still a lot. There are still a lot of gaps, and that's why I decided to move from EC2 to AWS billing, which is like the platform. So we'll talk a little bit more about that also. So the only thing common between all of these titles, all of these experiences, is that I was always doing B2B. At Accenture, it was mostly hospitality software. So I heard someone did hotel software. So I built property management systems, integrations with Expedia, etc. So that was an interesting problem to solve then, but again, like wanted to be more focused on more technical products. So I ended up in AWS. But all throughout, it was B2B. Even with HP, we were selling to companies, to resellers, which essentially makes the product or our offering. So I wanted this session to be as interactive as possible. So how do we define what is the difference between B2B and B2C? You can think about it in different lenses, right? Here are the few that I chose. Um, Customer influence, which is, are you building for the customer? The answer should always be yes. That's a trick question. Number of customers, release cycle and sales cycle, price, features, usability. So, can any of you start off from the top? Well, I gave the customer one already. So, second, number of customers. The left side is B2C, obviously, and the right side is B2B. Uh, who do you think has more customers? And release cycle length. What do you think? Which one is longer?
B2B.
B2B is longer. Yes. Sales cycle? Yes. Time? Features? This is an interesting one. So I heard B2C. Do you, do you think it should be the same? Raise your hand.
The number of features or?
So number of features. Same. I see like a couple of hands. Less for B2B.
Depends on the product.
Okay. More for B2B. More features or lower. So usability, which means like the user experience. Who do you think is B2C? Okay. So let's go to the next slide. So focus on features is always a thing that B2B does more, whereas usability is something that they don't focus on because they think like everyone that uses their products are technical, but that's wrong. Rules are always made to be broken, obviously, and here are like a few companies that I think are doing it magnificently. So if we look at Slack, which you all can join, product school Slack channel, which I am part of. Right now, I only use it for the product school Slack channel, but my startup would use Slack for everything. So we used any sort of sharing mechanism, but the docs would go on Slack and we can share, collaborate on it, etc. But there, the usability and versus features is not really a question anymore. So it's blurred out. It has to be user friendly, obviously, because even though it is a B2B product, there are a lot of applications that can come out of a chat app. And Workday, for example, is actually gamifying how HR works and also recruitment works, which is really interesting. And if you want, like each one of these has case studies online, and I can point you to those if you write me after. Adobe, every one of us uses it. It is B2B and B2C, but they apply the same principles across the board. And that's what I feel, from my perspective, is making them a stronger company as such. So, there are, so, uh, what is the product roadmap? People call it a strategic document that like essentially helps you build out what a product is. But for me, like most important of all, it essentially talks about the what and the why of a product, right? What are you building and why are you building? And this cuts across B2B and B2C. And what you define the why and what as might differ between the two, right? You have to have a vision and a goal, and this needs to tie to your company's vision and goals. If you are the first product manager, you probably are defining that also for your company, if they haven't already. And it would go with the company's mission statement, for example. The third thing is prioritization methodology, and why I think a prioritization methodology should be part of your roadmap is because a roadmap is used as a vehicle to drive consensus across multiple teams, right? And if you say this feature needs to be over something else, be built over something else, you need to make it clear why exactly you are calling it out that way. And an alignment is required on that also. And the last thing, obviously, which is important, but the rest of it is way more important before you get to the list, is the list of features. What you have done when you're building the roadmap is you have talked to your customers, internal stakeholders, everyone, and brought them on the same page when it comes to the vision and the goal. So there's always a healthy tension between the past and the future in the roadmap. And why should you consider the past? Because there are lessons learned. If you forget those lessons, I think like future, you can run into the same issues again. And that's why some roadmaps also have, here are top 3 wins that we've had in the past in this particular product. Here are top 3 lessons we've learned, which I think like is a good piece to actually research before you build out the roadmap. So, are you building the product for the user, or are you building it for the person who's buying it, for example? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of buyers in a larger company. There's a procurement department which actually looks at multiple offerings like Slack or Microsoft Teams or whatever Amazon has, which I won't tell you. But comparing all 3 of them, they have to look at like features, what's the price, etc., before procuring something. So, are you building it for that particular person, or are you building it for the administrator who's going to actually give it out to the users? For me, it always has to be the end user, because you could build it with a goal to sell, but if the end user doesn't like your product, it might be the easiest to buy. It might be the competitive, most competitive when it comes to price, but in the end, it'll always come back to like the functionality and whether the user actually loves your product. So here are all the customers I can think of when it comes to a B2B product, right? Of course, the end users are the most important, but there are the buyers, which is procurement channels. How exactly can they access pricing of your product? How exactly can they evaluate each feature against everything that's out there? Do they have to go through a lengthy request for proposal document, or is everything available online? So by independent software vendors, I mean anyone who has a startup who's created like a particular software SaaS offering. It doesn't have to be a startup. It can range from a startup to somewhere below enterprise scale. Okay, so that was the perfect fit for us then, and that's how I basically broke down what our revenue potential could be if we went after this particular segment. So requirement gathering. Sometimes PMs think they're all alone in this. You can't really. I don't think I'm smart enough to come up with all the ideas on my own. So I always try to appropriate ideas or learn about like what consumers want from all of the sources that we talked about previously. So make sure you're always in constant communication with anyone who talks to an end customer or even the end customer if possible. Most of the times in B2B, what happens is it's really hard to get that one persona to pick up the call or set up a call with you. If I want to talk to the finance person in a particular company, let's say Comcast, it will take me probably multiple cycles to actually get to the right person who uses the like particular functionality that I want to ask questions about. So use proxies as often as possible if you're not able to get to the end customer first. But gather requirements from all of the other partners that you have, internally and externally, so that you can actually create a repository or a backlog of features that you can prioritize from. So you have a ready-made roadmap for like the next year or the year after that. So, when I am mapping out the requirements, first you obviously like look at start with the end user, obviously, and then you have to build goals. Um, when you actually specify goals, they can be written as KPIs, they can be written as either a vision or North Star statement, etc. But you obviously follow SMART criteria for any goal that you set, which means it should be measurable, it should be like actionable, and you should be able to get to that goal within the time frame that you set for it, right? So that is how I would define goals. And why does it come right after the end user? Is because all of your goals need to make sure you're delivering value to the end user. Otherwise, they are pointless. So whether it's increasing exposure of your particular product, it needs to come from a place where it is delivering value to the end customer. You're not going to go sell in like a country where there is no demand for this particular product. And that's how you should think of it even in a B2B space. Or if you're not ready to support the use cases of that country, you wouldn't launch it just because you want to increase revenue. So other stakeholders would be ones that I would always run my roadmap through. I meet with finance, I meet with accounting, I meet with multiple teams and other service PMs to understand whether I am headed the right way, whether my vision can be checked by them or not. If I'm doing something completely wrong, the red flags will come way early on to me than after my dev team has built something out a year out. Uh, how do you differentiate your product when you are in the B2B space? Anyone knows how like AWS is different from Azure? Yeah. I don't think like everyday customers or even the end users understand what these differences are. But what makes the difference is, in the end, are you satisfied with your experience? Most of the infrastructure team's goals are that you're not thinking about infrastructure. If you're thinking about infrastructure, it's a bad thing because you have an issue with either your storage or your compute. or your billing experience, or your purchasing experience. Most of the time, if you are not thinking about infrastructure, we are doing a good job because we are managing it for you. The future, always keep in mind that you're not just working for this particular year. If your vision is short term, you will be essentially building the wrong thing all the time. So make sure that you are thinking and looking at what's out there. Where is this particular industry headed? Um, and how can your particular product align with where your industry is headed? Or even your customer's industry. Sometimes verticals change much faster than you do. And by verticals, I mean the industry. So, for example, manufacturing. Manufacturing is going through a complete digital transformation over the last 3 years and progressively beyond now, right? So, how do you predict what's going to be like how manufacturing is going to look in the next 5 years? You actually look at thought leaders, you talk to customers who are in manufacturing and see what their strategic plans are. You'll be surprised by how easily they would share this information with you if they are using your product because they want to make sure your product works for them even 5 years down the line. Changing your B2B service provider is much more difficult for them than it is for you. Losing a customer is not that much. Churn is obviously not a good thing, but for them, you can think about all the steps they have to go through to actually change their infrastructure provider or their billing provider, or even like any small, even a chat app provider. They have to set up single sign-on, they have to set up administration, etc. So think about it from their perspective. They want to stay with you, and you want to make sure that they can stay with you as long as they want to. And the last thing is look internally. If I'm building something very specifically and in my zone and not talking to the other product managers in my team, I'm probably not doing the greatest service to my end customers. Because specifically with B2B, you have to be in sync with what the rest of the company is building at all points in time. So make sure you're talking to your team on a continuous basis. So, what do you think? How many people should own a roadmap? Okay, one. Any more answers?
Two.
Two. Okay. That's logically helps you. Going once, going twice. So, okay. So it should always be one person. And changes can be made by only that one person. By that, what do I mean? Like, there is a gatekeeper for anything that goes into the roadmap and out of the roadmap who's making sure that all of the other criteria are met. Are we working towards the vision? Is this going to add value to the end customer? Is this meeting the criteria that was set in the prioritization matrix? And then the changes are put in. Otherwise, it is going to be a free-for-all, Wild West sort of situation that you don't want to end up in. So, where do you think competition's information is more important, B2B or B2C? B2C? Whoever, equal? Whoever said B2C, can you give me an example? Yeah? Go ahead.
Is it in a simple way, or you mentioned Spotify and Apple Music?
Yes,
Simple.
for sure. So I think it's equal. But some argue that B2B would need to pay more attention to competition because, again, like the differentiation is not really understood by the end user. Like I said, Azure, AWS, it doesn't matter to you. Their storage or our storage, is there a difference? You're able to store your file. That's what is important at the end of the day. So that's why competitors become really important in this case. So how do you assess competitors in the B2B space? And why do you do it? So one, you can understand your customers better. Whenever there's churn, for example, when I was in my startup, we had a product which was built before they had a product manager. So when there is a churn, it was really important for for me to talk to that particular customer, understand what went wrong. Otherwise, I wouldn't really feel their pain and empathize with them. If they give me feedback and I'm able to correct that, I'm hoping that this will avoid future churn, right? So talk to your whoever does this analysis of win loss. It's sometimes product marketing, it's sometimes marketing, sometimes sales, but talk to that person more often than not. Um, Market potential forecasting. So when you are a startup, maybe it doesn't matter as much for AWS because we are like the top company when it comes to cloud offering. We grow with the market. But if you are a smaller company, if you're a startup, you need to understand potential for your company as such. Once you understand your potential, every time there is another company that comes up with a similar offering, your potential is cut to half. And that's how you should be thinking about it. And making sure that you are driving towards customer satisfaction even more whenever that happens. So that's when it becomes important. You should always be continuously forecasting, making sure the sales team understands what the potential is. Here are the customers that you want to go after, etc. And tertiary market possibilities. So each one of the products, you might have built it with a particular use case in mind, right? With B2B, that usually is not the case. It definitely can satisfy another use case that you have not thought of. So do your research. Maybe your billing can be used on the retail side, or billing can be used even on Alexa side, etc. So why build different products for different portfolios when you can use one product? So try and make that sale internally. New customer acquisition. New customer acquisition happens like the flashiest thing is the one that attracts the new customer who is entering the market. For example, when I was thinking about like how long I stand in airport queues, Clear. I don't know if you're familiar with Clear. They have signboards everywhere around the airport. Would I go look up? Is there a competitor who's going to cost me much lesser than Clear? For anyone who doesn't know what Clear is, Clear lets you essentially skip the line and go directly to the TSA agent and walk through, right? So that is a functionality that I needed right then. And whoever is closest to you gets that particular new customer. So when you are trying to get that new customer, you need to make sure that you're in the places that they're looking for you. And this applies to B2B and B2C. So here's how I would do a market attractiveness analysis. Understand who your top competitors are, understand where their shares are, and understand which quadrant they fall in when it comes to mapping the market share versus the market attractiveness. Attractiveness is subjective and applies to your company. Do you want to grow in North America? Do you want to grow in Asia? Where the most so that's how I would map that. And global market share obviously is something given. So this is the example that I did like with the billing startup that I worked for. So here you can see the size of the bubble obviously is the size of the company's revenue. And I've mapped out every competitor there is. And my goals. What sort of billing product am I looking for? That would basically say where should I belong in this particular area. So I picked here because those were my particular goals or offerings that I wanted to provide for my customers. When my customer uses my particular billing software, this is what they are looking for. And Zora, which is a market leader in SaaS billing, only for like startups and smaller companies, was in the right space for me. So in terms of agility and complexity score, I wanted to be like so. Yeah.
Is this like complexity score internally, not complexity
Yeah.
to build it?
So complexity, that's a great question. Complexity can be, again, a very subjective thing because we are looking at complexity of how long it's going to take to build it, complexity of use cases for the end customer also, and complexity of how exactly the user flow and user journey will be if we build that particular product. So in yeah.
on the agility score, you obviously don't have insight into the inner workings of all of those companies.
Yeah.
So how are you able to rate them on agility?
That's a great question. So again, there are subject matter experts out there. There are obviously reports out there that you can rely on. But in the end, what helped me a lot was in startups, there's a lot of churn even with the salespeople. So I went and interviewed all the sales organization folks who came from these companies to our company, just to make sure that I have a checkpoint with them, to make sure that the reports I'm using are corroborated with real life scenarios. So if you can get that, that's great. If you have a subject matter expert in that area, that would be great too. Gartner, for example, is a sourcing company that, and also research company, which provides their label on new companies. If a manufacturing company goes to them and says that I want a SaaS offering to do accounting, they would say this is a new company which works particularly in your use case, does it really well, so go buy them. So what they have done is they have actually talked to everyone across the board to all these companies. In AWS has like analyst relations teams which would tell Gartner about our offerings on an ongoing basis, so they can tell you exactly where which company would fall. But again, trust but verify always. So now you know where exactly which company falls, where you want to be in the spectrum, etc. So go a level below and look at all of the features that they're providing. I'm hoping the next question is how do you get to those features? Any SaaS offering out there has a free version that's available for you to use. So what I did when it came to the billing feature set is I went and used all of the competitors' billing offerings, the free version of it, and mapped out what each one of these features would be ranked at, and made my dev team do the same thing. And they provided me a technical score, I provided the product usability score, and we came up with a sort of score that we can map out across the board. And
Those scores are subjective, right?
they are very subjective. So anything with B2B, unless it's like login experience, is very subjective, right? But for example, number of attributes that you can assign a particular product in the marketplace, that is not subjective, it's a number. You can assign 10 attributes, and by attributes I mean size, color, definition, etc. If you are able to give more, some of them are quantitative, some of them are qualitative, and that is why you need a mix of many of them to give a total score, which takes hopefully the subjectivity out of it and a larger group of people looking into this. Yeah.
What did you mean by going a step below?
Yeah, so by that I mean double click and look at the details instead of like looking at like the high level here, you're going more into detail. Yeah. Go ahead.
What are some methods to evaluate features that are not available as part of the free trial? So like you were saying, you're looking
Sure.
at competitors that have a free trial, people need to hide some of the most valuable features behind the walls. How do you evaluate those things and pretty much make a huge impact on whether or not you're actually better?
Great question. I think like the method I used when I was in the startup and had to be as frugal as possible was talk to customers who switched over from other offerings to us, or switched over from us to other offerings. So those would give you two data points. One, we were better at something than the other company, and two, they were better at us than at something, right? So take those as scores also. Again, trust but verify. Each one of these are subjective, but if a customer left you, actually build integrations with another company because your product was terrible, listen to them. So yeah, then so now you have a set of features, you understand your competition, you have basically talked to everyone you can. So how do you prioritize? Prioritization can depend on metrics, right? Like you could go after profitability, you could go after net promoter score, and if anyone doesn't know about Net Promoter Score, it's essentially the usability score that a particular customer can assign your interface or any sort of software that they use. Or you can go after revenue. Revenue and profit are all internal metrics. Unless you're driving profit for the end customer, that's a good use case where then they're able to sell more products so they increase their profits, etc.